Please be seated. When I was a little girl, my mother was chronically ill, and this necessitated for her to frequently be in the hospital, and sometimes for really long periods of time. And members of both my mother and father's extended family would take turns looking after me. My father's mother, my grandmother Berta, she lived in Houston and we lived in New Orleans. And about once or twice a year, almost certainly right before school would start, she would make the 7-hour trip in her gold diesel engine Cadillac and stay for a couple of weeks. Now, Berta was not like other grandmothers. She wasn't particularly cuddly or snuggly. She wasn't one for baking cookies or cherry pies. She was, in all honesty, a pretty dreadful cook. And what's more, she was always getting after us about gaining weight. She was tall and slender, and she kept her hair cut short and blonde. She smoked Winston cigarettes, which my father absolutely hated, but I found secretly fascinating. My grandmother and I had a complicated relationship, as you can imagine, because if Berta was there, it usually meant that my mother was not there. And so I would always just be a little bit mad at her whenever she first arrived. Plus, she didn't do things the way we did things. She had different rules and standards. A day or two after her arrival, after she got the lay of the land, Berta would declare that it was time to go through things. And by the time I was 7, I knew what that meant. Hearing this, I would resist and procrastinate and put up a fuss, but it was no use. No friends over, no play dates. I was sequestered. It was time to go through things, and go through things we did. Every dresser, every hanger in the closet, every book on the shelf, every toy in the toy box. Did it still fit? Did I like it anymore? We'd cull through it all. The cabinets under the bathroom sink, the desk in the corner, every half-empty bottle of shampoo and Jean Naté body splash, the self-portrait from Mrs. Rawson's art class, and the battered social studies diorama. Everything received a proper viewing. Now, Berta didn't just come in and decide what I should keep and what I should throw away, nor did she send me away and then sneak in and do it when I wasn't looking. Nope, she insisted that we do it together. Every item, a negotiation, a conversation. I would be very impatient at first, just trying to hurry up and get it through, but that never, ever worked. Berta would take out a dress and say, "Oh, now that's cute. I haven't seen that before." And then I'd start telling her the story about where it came from or what party I got it for or how I didn't like to wear it because it was too itchy. And then she would put a new record on, one of my records, and she'd find a bottle of my nail polish and she'd set it aside for later so that I could give her a manicure. And before long, we were talking, laughing, and almost having fun. Sometimes she'd come across a stained but beloved t-shirt or a beaten up pair of shoes or something otherwise unseemly, and she'd say, "Kathleen, I think we can do better than that." And most of the time she was right, but sometimes I would fight her for it. And sometimes I'd be ready to throw something away, but then she'd be the advocate. "I remember when you made that. Oh no, we can't get rid of that. That one's special. Let's put it in the keepsake box." Days later, when we were finally finished going through things, we'd get it all neatly put away, and then we'd make our list of all the new things that I needed for the start of the school year. And the next day, we'd go to D.H. Holmes' department store with my father's charge card in hand and shop. And the whole thing then would start all over again. Me resisting going shopping, and then the negotiating over each outfit, and then finally talking, laughing, almost having fun. The grandmother I thought I wanted was one who would spoil me rotten and think I hung the moon. One who made paper mache and cookies and let me drink sweet tea. One who'd snuggle up close and take care of everything. A grandmother who would do it for me, buy it for me, decide it for me, and make everything better. But the grandmother that I needed was Berta, and she was the one I got. Going through things, I learned not only how to stay somewhat organized, but how to take stock of myself, to ascertain what was worth holding on to and what needed to be let go. By ordering the chaos of objects, I sort of ordered the chaos of my life, discerning value, confronting losses, finding meaning. And Berta insisted that we do it together. It would have been so much easier for her not to, but she put up with my whining and my stubbornness long enough for us to find that laughter and love. In our gospel lesson for today, Jesus shows up, I think, kind of like Berta. He's not the Jesus we want. He's not the Jesus we expect, but maybe he's the Jesus we need. Throughout his ministry, his actions and his words, Jesus proclaims the worth of every human being, transgressing social and religious barriers. He restores relationships, frees captives, heals the broken and the brokenhearted. Jesus' witness is this: no one is outside of God's love. No one is beyond redemption. 2,000 years ago and today, the implications of this good news are radical. Poverty, disability, difference were often viewed then in the past and even now as signs of God's displeasure, perhaps even of God's punishment. You may recall the Pharisees asking Jesus of the man born blind, "Who sinned, this man or his parents?" In this theological frame, that must mean that if other people are cursed, outcast, less than, then surely that must mean that I am blessed, that I belong, that I am good. But if the frame shifts and those struggling aren't cursed or punished by God, then what does that mean? And what would that mean for me? Therefore, Jesus' gospel makes a claim on me, on all of us. It requires something from me. It calls me to respond to that poverty. It calls me to respond to those I've previously cast aside, to serve and show compassion. And it's messy, and you get your hands dirty. This Jesus isn't the Messiah the religious authorities or the well-established folks thought that they wanted. For those who thought for sure that they had the right ideas and the right practices, those who want to be justified, affirmed, upheld in their worldview, well, Jesus gets the lay of the land and declares it's time to go through things. And for those who believed that they were good and righteous and hung the moon, Jesus says, I think we can do better than that. Confronted by Jesus' love, everything, every aspect of ourself and our world receives a proper viewing. The baptism which Jesus brings, the baptism into which we are all invited, is a naming, a claiming, a proclaiming of our inherent belovedness, a belovedness that is shared by all God's children. It is the identity that trumps every other identity. And for me, this is the good news at its simplest. I am loved, and so is everybody else. I am made in the image of God, and so is everybody else. I don't have to earn that love. I receive it only as a gift. But I am also broken. Call it sin, call it the human condition, no matter. I am broken. There is a part of me that always keeps forgetting that I and you are loved. And so I will do things and believe things that divide and separate, that deny and distance me from the love of God, from myself, from my neighbor, from God. But the life and death and resurrection of Jesus, our Lord, overcomes this brokenness and declares that it will not have the last word. Through that baptism, I am forgiven, received, and welcome home to love again and again, and to try again and again. In the words of the baptismal liturgy, I am marked as Christ's own, sealed by the Holy Spirit, forgiven and free. This becomes who I am, who I see myself to be. Other identities may come and go, but that one endures. And the fire that Jesus kindles, the judgment that he brings, stands in opposition to any force that contradicts this truth, that corrupts the primary identity, the beloved identity. Anything that degrades, harms, oppresses, or destroys the people that God made, redeems, and loves. When we accept the gospel, when we really believe, or at least really try to believe, that we are both broken and blessed, forgiven and beloved, when we accept the good news that everyone else is too, living that good news becomes our vocation, our work. And we begin to put this gospel into action. And that can be a little bit disruptive. In fact, that may cause some conflict, inner conflict, as we confront our own assumptions and expectations about who is good and worthy and lovable, and outer conflict, for as we become agents of love, as we strive to restore relationship, we will upset the status quo. We will upset mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and so on. We will call into question the way that it is and ask those around us to reorient and reimagine what they thought for sure was true. Old ideas and prejudices are dragged out from the bottom drawer, laid across the foot of the bed, and shown for what they are: ill-fitting and itchy, stained and restrictive, ready for the fire. And there is yet another way that Jesus is less the one we want and more the one that we need. Jesus doesn't sweep in to fix it. He doesn't wave a supernatural wand so that, lo and behold, we make up in the morning and magically love one another. He doesn't do it for us, buy it for us, decide it for us. He doesn't make it all better, at least not in the way we sometimes wish he would. Jesus doesn't send us away and sneak in and tidy it all up while we're not looking. He insists that we do it together, that we struggle through it together. Jesus endures our resistance and stubbornness long enough for us to find the laughter and the love together. He puts up with our procrastination and whining, and boy, can we put up a fuss. But we do it together. We do it together so that we can, in fact, participate in that which saves us, and we can have a share in the work that God is doing in the world. The God who made us without us will not save us without us. Nearly up until she died, Berta and I continued to go through things. When I got older, she and I would go through her things, and I would hear the stories behind her treasured objects, old and familiar. And this is how we came to know and to love each other, how we marked the passage of time and the progress of our lives, and shared our hopes and loves of all the things that might come. To this day, this pattern helps me take stock, to reach back and find the hidden treasures of my past, to recognize and heal their wounds, to begin again and start anew. And so at the start of this new school year, this season of fresh starts and new beginnings, I'd just like to remind you that, you might not get what you thought you wanted. You might not get that teacher or the schedule or the team or the project or the play or whatever it may be. You may not get what you thought you wanted. But remember, Jesus is right beside you, going through things right along with you and helping you sort them out. And the love that you need, you really is the one that you have.